welcome to India Discovery Center's research seminar. We do history seminars. We have done 5 of them. This is the first research seminar in-house we are doing. What is research seminar? Research seminar, something that we did not exist before. We tried to figure out what it can be, could be, what it is. Now, the part of India Discovery Center, when we started India Discovery Center thinking about it many years ago, it showed up that the biggest contribution that India has made to the world is in language. And they spent enormous amount of time on sound. Who speaks? How do you speak? What sound is? Where sound came from? Does sound die? Does the universe have a sound? Is sound God? What it is? So it's a mysterious thing because sound may have a soothing effect. We cry, we laugh, so we release our stress by sound. Sound has also an affection effect. We deliver by our emotions by sound. So those things have been analyzed. And those analyses are pretty long, convoluted, analytic, philosophical, rich. All literature has not been studied yet. The literature regarding what sound is. What has happened is that sound itself has propagated as word. So this analysis of sound in very early times somehow converted itself to words. And those words, some basic words, they moved. They have moved. There is no detailed history how they have moved, but there have been some kind of a correlation analysis that how same word can be interpreted differently in different places. But that doesn't say why a word is as it is. So what we would be doing, or we're trying to do, to see whether we can understand what sound is. So we have 3 presentations today. The first would be, again, when I say presentation, these studies have not happened before. This is like a pure hypothetical postulates, following may be. So we are blessed that you are here and you examine whether is there an analytic process to it. Do you see the logic? What are the flaws? We have presented this in different forums that they call World Sanskrit Conference, and we have presented in 2 of them, but not in a setting where we have time to many questions. And we will try to expand it further, and before we go further, we thought we'll have a local seminar. So the first would be what we call Rasa Sankhya, which is whether each of us have different sounds. How does sound vary? The birds, animals, human beings, women, children, our own variation. So all those sounds are same, or there's a variation to it. What causes it? Why we say the same word many different ways, depending upon our condition, state. So that's a analysis with the Indian analysis of state called Sankhya to what we think a neurological condition of brain. Then we have a second paper which will present that suppose in that process of sound variation, you do create a noise. You do create a sound. It has many states, one state, you have a sound. What that sound is. Did you know it before? Did you recall it? Did you create it? That means every time I'm uttering a word, what is that word coming from? Is the pre-canned in me, which you kindly all shut off your systems if you can. Sorry. The word, whether I'm kind of saying the word, whether that word is in me, or I am creating the word consonant to my audience. There's a condition here, it's a morning time that people hear I'm speaking, and hence that enables me to say, okay, this is the state. So the question is whether the word is created to the state, rather word is pre-canned. And how much is pre-canned, if any. So that would be the second analysis. And third analysis would be this word which is now, so as we said, we have different states. The state has a noise. That noise is a word. So that word now has a production, has a biological production. There's air involved, neurology involved, muscles involved, tongue involved. So the question is, so it is not simply I'm saying, I'm also using my body to say it. So how each word, does it convey differently because my body is operating differently? Is it? So there are some analysis again from the Buddhists and Indians, Indian philosophers, saying that if you do the properly use a word, then your breathing system will be cleared. They call it pranayama. So that is, it's a control of your breath. So sound is not really what you produce. Sound is also discipline. So then the question is what the discipline is, who brings the discipline. So what we'll analyze in the third paper is, there's the Indian grammarian called Paninian, and how he creates these syllables, and to check whether his analysis of syllables has anything to do with our breathing. So that would be the three papers. And we'll also, once we do them, we'll have a little discussion about how we are proceeding forward and so on. So we call it a language research seminar, and we call ourselves a language research group. We meet once a month, that's occasionally a couple of times a month. Saturdays, first Saturday in the morning. Myself, and we have Jaspal here who joins. Jaspal is a student of philosophy, has been Indian history and so on, knows Sanskrit. Prem comes. Prem has been, he's a computer person, he's an Oracle, from Oracle, he worked for the Oracle, but also has taken interest in neurology and brain sciences and anatomy and empirical observations of what sound is through music. Then we have Bela. Bela is a neuroanatomist. Bela worked for this Harvard Medical School for many, many years. He's from Hungary. So he has his basic interest in language being Hungarian. And also Bela and I were part of a large project called Human Brain Project, where we worked, for the first time we thought about this, maybe 25 years ago, about like how the brain works. Then we have Hardeep. Hardeep also is our team. Hardeep comes, he's a designer, but it keeps us in track about how people really speak, how children speak, the empirical, because you can't simply theorize, you have to also be on the ground. So he puts us back into say, this is what I have heard. And she had the advantage of having grown up in England, so seeing multiple languages, and hence she has a capacity to see how a language may vary between, a word may vary between languages, same emotion may be expressed differently. So that is how, and then we have, Seshadri is not here. So another person from MIT, he comes, he's an electrical engineer. Then we have a biologist, he's not here now, Shiva Gautam. So like that, this is the group. We meet, we discuss. So basically presenting our work, and the first presenter would be, if you have not picked up the handouts, you can pick up, you can follow it. So we'll have like 20 minutes for each presentation, and then you have 10 minutes of Q&A, and we'll continue, and then we may have a little lunch, and then feel free after we've finished it, we have a little discussion, make your impressions and so on, and what we can do. So that's how it will go. All right, all people have introduced yourselves. Okay. All right, so first one would be Prem, Nagar.
Thank you, Dr. Misra, for the introduction of this entire project. So in this session, we'll be discussing Rasa Sankhya and connecting Rasa to Sankhya via neuroscience. Now this paper is a result of bi-weekly discussion which we have been having in this group, and also the critical thinking led by Dr. Bjoy Misra and the group. And we analyzed the empirical, the analysis which we did on the philosophy of India and others, and Western philosophy as well. And also, we looked at the neuroscience, and with Bela's expertise, we could enlighten ourselves and also the entire process. So basic thesis in this paper is essentially that our speech is a product of our reaction to the stimulus which we receive. Next slide. This will follow the basic agenda of goal of the paper, etc. But basically, what we did was to understand and interpret rasa based on the philosophy that includes Bharata's Natya Shastra, then Vedic and Ayurveda literature, and Sankhya philosophy of Kapila, and current findings in psychology and neuroscience, and neurological finding on emotion, and connecting memory imprints to bhav, and connecting rasa to emotion. The idea is to develop a cosmological model of Rasa Sankhya. Next slide. Now, to develop a conceptual model, of cosmology of emotion, we propose that Rasa and Sankhya merge in a phenomenological sense, as signature of an object is only perception by a receiver. We analyze emotion using literature in Sanskrit on Rasa and Sankhya, and we argue that Rasa is a product perceived through interaction between two objects. And we accept that such interaction could cause infinite perception, infinite variety of perceptions. Now we examine the origin of emotion in the human body based on neuroscience and compare this phenomenology of rasa as discussed in Bhatta's Natya Shastra. We connect memory, of course, with the bhava, the memory imprints to bhava, and we call this model as a Rasa Sankhya model. Next. Now, the rasa concept, if you look at from a Sanskrit literature, we find that this has been described in 4 distinct ways. If you look at rasa as a taste, now when our sensory tongue and mouth absorbs a taste, now in this rasa connotes taste. Now taste is invasive and internal in production. We only get it in our mouth. This biochemical absorption and sensation affect our mental state. The concept of taste through literature one can find in a variety of other literature, including what we have mentioned. The neuroscience separates 5 taste somatosensory organs or receptors that senses the spiciness, the temperature, the fattiness, etc. Rasa in this context is a detection of the substance before we ingest. Now let's look at rasa in Ayurveda, which is essentially talks in terms of juice of a substance. And Ayurveda uses rasa as a medicinal chemical to examine the body of a person and also treat a person. Now, in other words, rasa manifests in an object by interaction with another object. The manifestation may reside and maintain in a receiver even when the interaction ceases. Rasa manifestation could arise through memory recall when we ruminate, when we remember, recollect certain things. Now, let's look at the rasa in Vedic literature. In Upanishad, rasa signifies an active ingredient in a substance. In cosmological sense, rasa qualifies as an action. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna declares, I am the rasa in water, the taste of the water. In Nirukti, rasa body aura is used to diagnose and treat a patient. Rasa in Natya Shastra, Bharata used rasa as a psychological condition, your mental condition, and theorized that human is endowed with bhav, which connects mind through rasa, and bhav is rooted in rasa in us, such that the activation of bhav manifests rasa and we immerse in it. Rasa manifestation is categorized as Shringar, Veer, Radha, etc. And to summarize this aspect of it, bhava is a memory event and rasa is a mental event. Now let's look at the philosophical and the psychological ideas which were in the history available. Mind and human psyche. Spinoza, in 1700 current era, in his philosophy considered attributes of cosmology of universe as essence of things. And he says that they are substance of God. Now we agree with Spinoza that true attributes are divine and not fully comprehensible by human senses. When we look at Kant's theory of cognition, where mind shapes and structures experience, an understanding of the world is founded in experience, the experience we gain, and a priori concept which is nothing but a derived understanding based on our experiences. Now, cosmology of Sankhya by Kapila of 700 BC, if you look at, and he talks about individual distinctiveness, where he says the universe has two realities, Purusha, which is your consciousness or consciousness, and Prakriti, which is a matter, and Jiva, which is a living being. They're all bonded with Prakriti. Now, this fusion of Purusha and Prakriti led to Buddhi, which is your spiritual awareness, and Ahankara, which is an individualized ego. And then universe is created with the Purusha Prakriti fusion or infusion with elements of senses, feeling, activity, mind. Now, cosmology of Sankhya by Kapil again it talks about the guna theory, which essentially means that everyone and everything has three qualities or gunas. One, sattva, which is goodness. Two, rajas, which is passion. And three, tamas, which is darkness. And their interplay defines a physical and psychological character and nature in us. Sankhya enunciate that perception is biased because it is individualized. Now we present, while Spinoza accepts attributes as an essence of things, but we present that such attributes are rasa and they are transient in nature. We also assert that there exists a conceptual variation and we are unable to measure these conceptual variations. There are infinite attributes required in creating cosmology of the universe. Bhava from Natyashastra, Bharata used rasa as a psychological condition, as we talked, and theorized that we are endowed with bhava, and bhava connects mind through rasa and defines rasa as a latent condition which is supported by bhava. Bhava is rooted in our latent rasa in us, and activation of bhava manifests rasa, and in turn reinforces bhava in body, and we immerse in rasa. Bharata recognized 8 types of rasa and suggested a physical manifestation of bhava as thigh bhava. Essentially, body function affects mind and vice versa. The mind affects body, body affects mind. Now let's look at the ambience. The ambience of a stimuli, which is visual, sound, and other sensory input that aids manifestation of bhava, these are cosmological conditions and probabilistic in nature, as vibhav helps trigger bhav and rasa. Now, let's look at rasa and bhav and their interplay. So rasa triggers bhav in our setup, and attributes could create rasa by interacting with another attribute of other object. Attribute itself is inert, but it is the interaction with another attribute of another object animates this attribute and creates rasa, which is local. Rasa is psychological, bhava is physical, and they have a mutual interaction. Rasa absorbs in the body through bhava, and Bharata's visual art system is based on emotional impact due to rasa. Emotional impact affects entire body. All parts of the body participate and manifestation of rasa. which is a facial muscle, body muscle on emotion. So emotional impact of rasa has neurological effect and expressed through muscles, actions of muscles, and through face and body and speech. Now let's look at the neurological problem. The rasa is the stimulus. We are individuals because of our genetic makeup, and that gives us a genetic capacity. And we have unique experiences. Now this is how we become unique. We therefore have a different thresholds of excitation on a stimulus. This is subjective and personal. Therefore, response to emotional stimulus is uneven. Not everybody will get the same response. So different emotion needs a different threshold of body excitation. Now let's look at the mind-body interaction. Bharata enunciated that bhava and rasa are intermingled. There is an interplay of these two. And bhava is a bodily function and rasa is a psychological condition or function. Bhava is built in and stays latent when bhava comes into life through when you get the rasa. Next. Now, based on neurological experiments, particularly on mice, and using the fMRI technology, which is nothing but functional magnetic resonance imaging technique, the studies were conducted to find the psychological impact of emotion on memory. And here the word we will be using, engram, which is a neurological word, which creates an impact of emotion when a particular memory is formed. Such memory traces or engrams are identified in amygdala, it's a part of the organ of a mice, and memory trace of fear emotion involves a set of neurons in a lateral amygdala that expresses high level of transmission factor called CREB. This is a protein that gets embedded in that particular memory, which becomes an emotional memory. Now, CREB protein that embeds the activation in neurons and leads to a recall of fear memory in a mice. That's the experimentation which has been done, and they have been able to recall such memories. Thus, fMRI studies indicate that specific sites in brain activation in response to emotions suggest that distinct set of neurons mediate expression of a particular emotion and helps record a long-term memory. So that's how the function of CREB and the neuron and set of neuron that forms. Next. Now, in the neurological finding based on certain studies, the neural imprints of or engrams are psychological impact of emotion on memory. Now, such engrams or traces correspond to emotion. Such results are from experiments on the memory recall that certain experiments were done to find. And for example, within a context of fear that elicited by a sound, so by recalling fear memory does not require same sound intensity which initially required to create that engram. The second, based on Kim's analysis, once a trace is created or the engram is created, it has a permanent effect in brain. The amplitude threshold during recall is much lower than during the initial phase or initial trace creation. Further studies also were done to check the effect of stimulus after the ablation of CREB neurons, and CREB neurons are nothing but simply act as a marker to the change in the memory. Now, let's look at the conceptual Rasa Sankhya model. And we are using two terms, rasa channel and bhava channel, and we'll explain what it is. So when we receive an external stimulus, that external stimulus is embedded with, we call it rasa channel. This embedding is nothing but the proposition or the suggestion which has come out of that particular stimulus. These are infinite and cosmic in nature. Sensory organs of objects acts as a transmitter or a receiver. So when these sensory organs are receiver, or I'm talking to you, I'm transmitting and you're receiving. So sensory organs of the object acts as a transmitter and a receiver, and our sensory organs are receptor and also transmitter when someone else is a receptor. So any such stimuli with our intentionality, now this is our intentionality, what we want to do, can propel possible manifestation on reception. Now Bhava channel has a relationship with the memory engrams, and this resides in brain, and these are created engrams of the traces of the past experiences. The Bhava channels are innate channels through guna, basically the genetic, the makeup which we have, which is our genetic makeup, and hence that's our capacity. Bhava intensifies through experience as these are nurtured through experience and become neural imprints. Next. Now this is a schematic presentation discussing the conceptual rasa bhava model and how the interaction of rasa channel to bhava channel, which is essentially what the proposition was, what our engrams are, how they are interacting, and what is the recall. And this rasa bhava channel interaction creates certain impulses, and that impulse in turn triggers certain muscular action. So this is the schematic of that entire flow which we have talked earlier. So let me summarize that. So we received an external stimuli. It has an embedded proposition, which we call it as a rasa channel. Sensory organs act as the receptors, and in brain and mind, seeing, sound, and other sensory impulses that are received and analyzed by interacting with the memory engrams. And rasa channels interacts with the bhava channels, which are nothing but your engrams or memories, and this rasa bhava impulse triggers a muscular action, which could be a facial expression or a speech coming out from your mouth. Next. Now, this is an idea presented in the schematic to give you the neural imprint, which is the memory model which we have been talking about. So again, an external stimuli we are receiving. It goes through the sensory organs, and the sensory organs are the receptors. Now in brain, this stimuli has bound against our memory, which has found those bhava channels or bhava or those engrams, and this rasa bhava interactions has created a particular impulse, and how that combined interaction is creating an action. So that is the description, and that is the schematic of this, and let me describe this briefly. The external stimuli with the rasa channel embedded as a proposition of the stimulus received. Sensory organs acts as a receptor, and in brain, interaction of rasa bhava channels triggers selection of neural imprints which are there as an engrams, either for perception or if it is a new experience. So for the purpose of encoding this new experience, that memory is encoded. Now this selected neural imprints combines modalities, there are certain other aspects, and triggers the brain and the stem and spinal cord action to trigger a rasa bhava impulse, right, and which in turn initiates the muscular response by way of our body movement or by way of our speech. Next, now let's look at the Rasa Sankhya cosmology. Rasa Sankhya theory of creation enunciates that all things, though bounded by life and death, displays different personalities and living. When you are living, you have a different personality. The elements, bhuta, progression of manifestation, and we add, let's say, water and a rasa concept to water. I'm the rasa in the water, that's the Krishna's declaration. This creates a model of cosmic vibhav, right? The ambience. The thesis of Sankhya is the human attitude is built on individual bias and resides physiologically and psychologically. Every object in its own form is inert and joyful. Rasa manifestation assumes rasa as a tacit cosmic element, and it exists before solid object manifest, and it pervades whole created universe, and it affects senses and induces bhava. Bhava by definition is organic and biological. We speculate the bhava in personality develops through memory as we accumulate experiences. We deduce that our experience, that an external stimulus is capable of affecting through memory recall of past experiences. The effect of stimulus is strong on us when the memory has deep impressions of such experiences, and we connect the new research that memory does get partitioned in a different experience structures and creating a neural imprints. So there is a memory partitioning inside. We speculate that this structure acts as the basis of bhava. The neuroscientists have recently found an anandamide, which is nothing but a bliss molecule that may be responsible for this particular state. Now this is the model of Rasa Sankhya, and it's a very composite sketch giving the entire picture together. And this shows a composite sketch and our view of cosmology of rasa. And rasa sits latent in mind and is activated through sensory stimulus. I don't want to repeat the details. And helps in creating bhava that creates the objects and universe. Bhava reinforces rasa and manifests as speech. Once the state is triggered, one can live in that state without additional trigger by recollection and becomes enlightened, as Buddha did and claimed samsara in nirvana, as Nanak referred this union as Sabdhyanand Kare Sadkela. Sufi call this as a state of fana, and which is nothing but a drop of water merging in an ocean. Next, no next. Yeah, hold on.
No.
Hold on here. Yeah, come back please. So in summary, to summarize this entire aspect, bhava is a memory event, while rasa is a mental event. Sankhya brings us subjectivity that is biased, which is individual in nature. Brain develops neural imprints based on our experiences, and we accumulate experience. We develop our attitude. CREB neurons act as a possible rasa markers, and experience gives us bhava that makes neural imprints. Finally, rasa is a product of assertion expressed in a stimulus perceived with the individual bias. And our basic thesis, speech is a result of our reaction to stimulus, which can be internal and external. And this is how we connect rasa to Sankhya via neuroscience. Thank you.
Number of terms came, and I want to the rasa bhava channel engram. So as I said before, the goal is to understand sound, understand why we speak. We brought this philosopher Spinoza. Now, what those concepts suggest is each of us, each object in the universe has a property. Property. I am not you, you are not me. And we are the best when we live in our property. A ness. Ness, this is me. A my-ness. Book-ness, flower-ness, tree-ness, sky-ness. Together, an object-ness. That is a, which in Sanskrit called sattva. Sattva means the existence of the object has a property. That property is not how it looks, how it smells, what it is. It is how it perceives itself. My-ness. So the point is that ness you know, when that ness becomes, when we are in that ness, yoga says, yoga will say that we are in our bliss when we are in that ness. When they call it self, Atman, so that is you. I am in myself. So that has been called in the Vedas, he said, rasa. That is, I have myself in it. That is my rasa. And that rasa is bliss. Cosmic, spiritual. So this, from Spinoza's theory, we bring that there is something called an objectness as rasa, which has not been fully analyzed. You know, the whole literature on it, we have not gone there. But that's the concept, that exists, which we call, whichever way you call it, but we can experience it. So so the yoga will say, tadrastu, that you reach there, and then you are in super bliss. All right, Atma. Now what happens is, so that bliss then becomes also our personality, our likings, dislikings, our perception, favors, disfavors. So we become human, we become object, different. So we kind of lose that, the ananda of it, the inner joy of it. We become ourselves. We cry, we happy, we love, we eat. So those are also called rasas. So there are two rasas here. So those rasas are our features. Rasa of peace, rasa of love, rasa of laughter. You know what I mean? So which is different than myself, rasa of bliss. So the rasa of bliss, even though it exists, so rasa of bliss is silence. It doesn't speak. So we have to go from there to the rasa that speaks. So now the question is, when I'm speaking, I'm having this connotation of the rasas in me trying to compose myself into saying. So then the question would be, as you said, that what I'm saying is, who am I saying? How do I say? So what we theorize, that we bring in Sankhya in the sense, even though I have bliss in me, but I have also an object space. Object space means my muscles, my brain, my ancestry, my parents, my education. So I have that. So that's Sankhya. I'm created certain way. I am it. I am it. So that's one thing, which means that whatever that bliss I may have and so on, when expressing myself, I'm expressing as an object that is me. And that object is different than different. You object different, you different, you different. Diversity. But in that object space, also I receive different stimuli differently. I travel on the road, then I notice a house. You travel on the road, you notice a different house. So those are kind of a things, certain things you see, you get scared. Certain things I see, I love it. You know what I mean? So there's a question of affinity, familiarity, so those things come in. So that is where we bring in this engram theory, where that even though I may have personality, so that personality can be now affected by certain events in my life which can create certain amount of imprints in my brain which could be etched in. It could be genetic also. So etched in me, which will propel me towards some stimulus. Now the other thing that he said, which we theorize, that is the so-called the Ananda Rasa inside of us, each of object has, right? So that is kind of also coming out to me. Each object is spreading Rasa. That's the theory. When you say external stimuli, each of us, each of you, me, we are kind of exuding rasa to each other. You know what I mean? And we use the word channel. So channel is an arbitrary word. Channel in the sense as though we are going in different channels. We do not know how it goes. But the idea is that I, as an object, I'm scattering, I'm kind of moving, I'm transmitting rasa to the world. For all you people to receive it. The sun is throwing rasa, and then we receive it. So then the question is, how we receive it is a function of us, not a function of the object. So depending upon how we receive it, we understand the object. Sun may look bright to some, sun may look hot to some, sun may look life-giving to some, sun may look like a disturbing to some. So that's the function of how our engram is operating. But what the new thing we are saying is, as a physical model, that each object, the tree, sky, clouds, so they are kind of throwing rasa at us, and we are throwing rasa at each other. That's the channels. And that rasa eventually goes, gets captured, and then once it gets captured, as he said, so that becomes, that's another word we use, bhava. So like rasa comes to me, your rasa comes to me, then that affects me. When it affects me, that process, which is biological, blood will flow, neural actions will take place, I have to think, you know what I mean? So those are all bhava. Bhava in the sense that's a physical state. We said rasa as a mental state, in the sense I receive it, but once I receive it, you know what I mean? I get affected by it. So that's the bhava. So which bhava will really eventually empower me or affect me more is a function of, again, how my brain is ordered. All right? So anyway, so I thought I would summarize that a little bit for you, and then you can ask any questions and so on to Prem, and then we'll move on.
Looks like from your model, the bhava and the rasa, it seems like correlated and mutual influence to each other. It's kind of model like this one, your physical will affect your psychologically. I mean, is that correct?
No, these are two distinct words, but they are used sometime substituting other. However, bhava is a physical, your expression, and rasa is mental, what you enjoy in your brain. That is bhava, which is psychological. So there is a difference is that ras or rasa, you enjoy based on your, because it creates a psychological condition and in brain, and that propels your body to move because there is an interaction of bhava rasa and your body expresses. That expression which you give is bhava. In other words, the bhava is physical, rasa is mental. That's how the distinction we would like you to understand. I mean, that's the way it has been described as well.
See, we'll come to that at the end in more detail, but the whole concept of mind as a function is not understood. We don't know where mind is, what mind does. But what we would suggest is that there is some kind of a mental plane which propels you to an action. Your brain is not propelling you. For example, you are here, your mind is moving somewhere else. That can happen, which is not physically contained by you. So that process we have not fully understood. But that you have that mental process, which means that a memory, something will happen to you and you become happy by itself, which has no stimulus here. Things of that nature. So we'll discuss that in more depth after we finish all three.
Just to come back what this was saying, you developed a curiosity mentally that what is rasa and what is bhava, why they are interchangeable, there's some confusion here. This is your mental state. This is what we are calling as rasa. Now this propelled you to raise your hand and ask a question. That's your expression. That's the bhava. Right? So that's the way I thought you'll be able to take it.
Okay. Oh, you have a question? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
sure.
So the engram concept that you said, right? Like you have the imprint in your mind, and then you have the impulse, right? So like, did you research that? Can it go deeper than mind, like into your consciousness or some of the other realms? In a sense that in this mind is, let's say, matter, right? That is something I've accumulated in this lifetime, so to say, right? Can I have some other experiences, right, which are so negative, and my impulses, based on those experiences?
Okay, let's put it this way. Memory, when it gets created, any memory that today you came to this session and we are interacting, so this is the memory you are creating, right?
Yeah.
Now this memory you are creating with certain emphasis, and that emphasis is nothing but that engram or that CREB protein, which will help you recall on a certain condition, situations, this incident that we interacted, or we talked about this, or we discussed this, or this flower smells like this, or this particular fruit tastes like this. So these are those special properties that gets engraved in your memory, which we call it as a trace or an engram, which are nothing but some kind of a protein, CREB protein, and that is an impact which is established in the memory. So in a given situation, when we are saying a rasa channel and bhava channel interacts, what it essentially means is that whatever impulse or the stimulus which you have received and you have processed, now you are interacting with the brain, with the memory, you find a similar memory available, which is an engram, which has a CREB protein, which is helping to interact. And this interaction creates an impulse to express.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
There we go.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bela is here, okay, all right, good. So next one is by Dr. Bela Kosaras. Bela is a physician, did neurology, neuroanatomy, taught for many years in Hungary, came to US, and then has been in Harvard Medical School ever since. Retired a few years ago. Then we had the occasion to produce the first ever digital brain atlas. So they had a project and so on, I helped them. So that's how we knew each other. And Bela is very analytic. He's kind of a more practical man. He does with his hands, creates, sees visually, and analytic in the sense he has a whole host of information in him about how the brain works. Now from the modern theory of neurology, the brain is the complete instrument. Nothing happens besides brain. So when we say Rasa affects me, Rasa can't affect me without brain. So the question then is, how does the brain as an instrument becomes cognitive so that it can react? So which means that the theory of Buddhism or theory of Indians saying that there is a mind as a construct, contradicts the thing that mind has. If a mind exists, it's a function, it's inside the brain somewhere. So that is where we have not fully resolved, but we have the greatest pleasure of having associated with Bela, the finest gentleman you've ever seen, and the finest scientist you've ever seen. So we have the real privilege to have Bela Kosaras, and he will talk to you about the semantics versus lexicon. So this is a concept came up in the sense that from the Rasa Sankhya, Sankhya is we're all different. Rasa is we are bombarded with information from the universe. Different objects, different spaces, they're giving us. So that information gets processed in us. That is the Rasa Sankhya model. That becomes us. That becomes our speech. So that becomes our voice. Now the question is how that voice is created, what that voice is. So there's a theory, a linguistic theory, saying that I'm constrained by my language in my voice. I can only say so because I learned so. The question is language a part of you, or language is something that you learned? So then who are you? You minus the language. So we call that semantic, as I understand it. So here, we welcome Bela Kosaras.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Bjoy's very grateful statement. Maybe a little bit overstated. I don't understand the brain, how it works, and I'm probably not the only one who doesn't understand, but generally, unfortunately, we don't know how the brain works. We like to know, however, it's very difficult. One of the nuclear physicists told that if we'd like to understand the brain, then our brain would small to understand the brain. So let's see. As Bjoy told them, I'm rather familiar with the neuroanatomy than the linguistics. So I try to a little bit go through this summary that we put together, a problem and some delay in the creating speech. That delay goes inside the brain, and then we during this delay think that that's the time then the neurons in the brain working. And then the semantic representation of brain, which area that we think that the semantic and the lexical sitting in the brain. And I try to tell something about the sound and word cognitive grammar and how it vocalized, how the speech comes out, and the function of prosody and the vowels, how we can use those, and the evolution of the language a little bit. Thanks. So the problem is that we encountered is if we think about the brain function, that the brain and we are dealing with the lexical and semantic knowledge. The semantic means the meaning of the word deciphered in hearing and context by our brain, that we don't know how exactly it happens. And the lexicon is meaning of the word obtained through the dictionary, but again it comes in our brain that understand the word's meaning. The problem is that again we encountered, so how does the brain function? How is the semantic and the lexical inventory stored and elaborated in the brain? And how sound converted, alphabetic, and what does mean that we can think, the thinking process is, and where is that? So there are a lot of neurological research going on recently after the MRI technique developed, and particularly the functional MRI, that we can detect which brain area is active. I'd like just to emphasize that if we see on the fMRI that some given brain area or many areas is flashing and we think it's active, yes, it is active. But actually, what's going on inside the neurons, no idea. So we connected with the outside world with our sensory organs. So the visual organ and the auditory organ is the most important, and we get the most detailed information from the outside world. So through the ear that we receive the sound, the voice, and this through the ear sensory receptors there is sitting inside the ear, the inner ear, the cortical. The first area, first station is here in the temporal gyrus. It's called the Wernicke area, where the acoustic information streams in, and we understand the word. And this area, to me, it's working as I can compare the sound to the light, to the white light. This is compounded structure. So, and as the light, when comes into the prism breaks up into the individual light, red, green, and blue. So this area is a relay station which direct the voice or the word different components to the different area of the brain. So the entity of the sound which carries the word has a lexical entity, and the lexical storage happened in the middle temporal gyrus. The phonological component of the word or the voice here in the temporo-occipital area, and the phonetic encoding in the brain happens in the parietal and frontal area. Here is the central sulcus, which the border between the frontal and the parietal lobe, and the phonetic encoding happens very close in both is sensory cortex, and this is the motor cortex, and to this very close to the Broca area. There in the prefrontal, frontal cortex and the inferior frontal gyrus happen the syllabification, which is the initiation of the speech when we put together and start to speak. Well, here I'd like just to add the how the brain store the words. Then we can distinguish the noun and the verb. Is interesting. Some research group detected that there is in the occipital cortex, starting out two pathway is the ventral visual pathway and the dorsal visual pathway, which the dorsal was a little bit discussed and disputed, and later discovered that the dorsal visual pathway has one, a superior and inferior, which interestingly very close and goes to the phonetic encoding area. And they proposed and noticed that actually with the visual system we can notice the object, whether it is a static or it is moving. And they found that the static objects and the word that correlate to the static objects goes to the ventral visual cortex, ventral visual pathway, and is exactly goes through the mid-temporal gyrus, where these words, the static representing words, it has been stored. The dorsal visual passwords, interestingly, convey the moving action, the words that correlate the moving action, and is actually the verb is that if you think, if we say that I'm hammering or I hit something, so these action, the movement involves in it. So it goes very close to the sensory and the motor cortex, where the actual the actual moving intention starting out. So I think that we thought about that this storage, the lexical, phonological, phonetic and syllabification storage, not only just a kind of passive lexical storage and stored in the so-called lexical memory, but very likely the cognitive memory located into in these areas, or as we think that the thinking center, the mind, is mostly in the prefrontal frontal cortex function, is very very densely connected with this area. So it is absolutely not sure that it is individually only this area has the function of storage, or between the two connections. So next, so in the speech, as I told that, so there is a delay when we start to make and select a thought. Then we should select the words, which we select the lexical encoding that guided our concept, and that is about 100 to 120 milliseconds. We have to combine for this word the phonological code, how it will sound. It takes a little bit longer time, and then the phonetic encoding is the other, how we put together the word by the several units. And then as the biology and the brain work very well with a very intense feedback mechanism, so the brain also has a kind of self-monitoring function. So it starts to control how it works and whether it is properly works, properly selected the words, the phonological code, and the phonetic code. This is the so-called self-monitoring internal version, internal form of the self-monitoring system. Next one. So the semantic so the meaning, the understanding of the word is our function, because if we just would have the word as a lexical entity without meaning, without understanding it, then we would like a parrot that can learn a couple of words and to even repeat it. So we think that, as I told, that the lexical storage, the phonological storage, and the encoding, phonetic encoding reside in this area, temporal and parieto-occipital, temporo-occipital area, not only just a lexical memory, but it represents the cognitive memory, where we understand the meaning of the word. And this is the scheme that actually shows what I told, that how speech initiating by selecting a word from the lexical storage, and we try to find the component that were associated with that, the prosody, emotion, and so on, and the self-monitoring is representing the next one. So this that we thought that the lexical memory, where the lexical memory is, the cognitive memory is the same location, or, as I told, probably the very diffuse interconnection between this area is it's working like a unit, and actually that we sought, and the research group told that the lexical encoding and storing happens in the mid-temporal area, is detected by the fMRI. But with the fMRI, actually we don't know what the other wiring happened between the other area, for example, the prefrontal, frontal cortex, where we think that's the location of the mind, where the understanding, then the concept we can create. So, as we thought that this lexical storage and the we can call the lexical memory equal the cognitive memory, based on the bilingual and multilingual experiment, where it turned out that the bilingual word storage overlap. So without understanding, we cannot speak bilingual or multilingual. So we have to understand we can say simultaneously. When the words come in, it is not just stored, but with our mind it is understood what it means. So when his experiment has been done, then so really the different language words, when the person hear or try to express, flashing the same areas. Yeah, I think that let's go to the next one. So I think that I can only just very few sentence to say. So we hear this sequential noise or sounds, and I think that it is about to reflect the as Bjoy and Prem told, that actually everything, every object or the sound carries the essence in itself, and this is the so-called rasa. It is not just only the orange then we take into our mouths and the juice we taste and feel that, oh, very nice, sweet, but the other object, every object has some very specific characteristic entity which definitely designed for the object, and we through this visual information, images, or the sounds, the word, this carries this rasa inside our brain, and then the bhava function, which is very likely the mind function, works, and then the bhava, the mind, recognize what the message has been arrived through the words or the visual images. And then through that, as I told, that very simultaneously the understanding, the meaning of the message elaborated and happened in the brain, in our brain also. Next one. talked about the lexical meaning, and so of course here we have to think about the so-called the local memory. So if we think a very early tribe person, when they start to communicate, so their memory slowly filling up, and then during the development or during the ages, as their memory filled up and more information being stored, then they can compare the new information with the already inside resided information, and they can measure and compare it. And this is also very important because when they want to communicate, they can select some stored or newly arrived information and use as a tool to communicate. Of course, the time delay is very different depending on if we think about, if we talk to each other, the time delay is very short. Otherwise, the conversation would be very difficult. So when in this respect, it means that the brain function is so quick that as I receive the words, the sounds, I immediately, simultaneously understand it, so my brain can elaborate and analyze, parsing very quickly, and also the response that I want to give very quickly comes into my mind, and then it goes to the so-called vocal system, to the larynx, to the lung, which support and execute the speech. So here we thought that it would be very good to understand how the communication and the speech starting, how we vocalize the speech. We have this very nice and many possibility to see when we try to learn and observe our kids or babies, how they communicate. And our thought in our group that the newborn baby, communication comes in inherited, inbred ability. So what the structure, the brain structure the baby has the ability, the function that they can produce some words, syllabs. And we think about the very, very first moment when the newborn comes into the world, they cry. And the cry is, if we observe very carefully, is very much like the vowels. Oh, yeah. So, and in the research group also found that about 3-4 months, the babies just can produce vowels. So Patricia Kuhl was one of the who worked with the babies, and he made this statement, the baby perception is as good as the adult. I have to add this, that we have to consider that the baby's age was about 8-10 months that the Kuhl investigated. So it's a very different age, very different. So because the biological, the brain research showed us that the brain hasn't been matured by the birth, and the neuronal axons hasn't been fully myelinated, which insulate the wire, the electrical wire of the nerves, and this insulation should be perfect into that the conductance of the axons happen properly. Otherwise, it doesn't. And so, therefore, the very young babies cannot repeat our words that we, the mother, father, and the surrounding people saying to them, and they cannot repeat it. So can repeat later when the myelination had progressed, and later they slowly can repeat mama, papa, and so on. So it comes that the consonants they can produce, and also for the syllabs, the words they can put together, and really the babies when they reach 1-2 years old, they can speak very fluently at the children's level, of course. But we understand, and we can very well have a conversation with them. Next one. Before the MRI and the fMRI came into service, the brain function was we could investigate, experiment with sick persons who got stroke and so on and so on. We can go further. In this, the tribe people, the Pira language, the Amazon tribes, the research group met them, and it was very interesting that they don't want to accept the new words that the research group brought, and they use just their own. And the research group noticed that some words absolutely missing, for example, which is the training or money, so that they don't exist. And just recently, we thought that it would be very nice to learn from the tribes people, but recently we learned that it is not very safe, and it could be very dangerous, as the American tourist was killed in this by these native people. So, but what we can learn is from the babies. But so the tribe would be very good. So therefore, how the this from vowels one then goes to syllabs, enters, so develop a speech, a language, because the tribe people can communicate with each other. So with emotional outbursts, either is joyful or grudges, emotional expression, or so that would be very interesting how they create the words. So therefore, we think that it happened several hundred years, and we just cannot have. Thanks. Yeah.
Just keep the video time.
Thanks. Go next. The cosmological significance, then I think that Bjoy and Prem also talked about that. So the Rasa existed in the cosmos, and that it carries the essence of the bird and the suns, and then we, through the human voice, got it and enters in our brain, and that evokes emotions inside our brain, and it is stored, of course, in the memory, and that we can use through our communication. But the biology is very economical. Next one. just for a second, we come back to the speech, to the how the process from the thought to the articulations happen, as I told that we select the lexical storage, phonological storage, the words, and we put together. Then is the self-monitoring system has been built up as the internal, but here we haven't labeled, so there is another self-monitoring, the external self-monitoring system, when the laryngeal muscles is working and producing the word, and we express, we hear it. Not just the other partner, but we hear also what we said. And that comes into our brain, and then we can control again what we told. And that would be the so-called external monitoring circuit or circuit. I think that I mentioned that the word storage and the different parts of the word storage, not just a simple storage, but an active memory where the cognitive memory function that we understand the word's meaning, which I think with the thought that is overlap with the lexical memory and semantic memory and cognitive memory. So that would be a very complex mechanism that we don't understand how it is connected and work, but through the brain very dense connection, it's happening. So the next one would be, so here also a tribe language, we can see how they start to speak, use very, very single vowels or vowels and a consonant, and they labeled that the meaning. So it's probably if we would leave the baby alone, probably the babies would go through this developmental way, but it would have a very, very long time, and we don't allow this. So the other word creation is again, so very economical, not just the brain function, but the biology, how the communication, the word put together. So, for example, the pa, I think that was water, and p to drink, and how the other meaning build up to put together another source. So if you don't mind, so it's very interesting because if we see our language, then it is interesting that the noun, for example, shovel, which is the tool. And if you said to shovel, that's the verb. So it's a very, very well connected. It isn't a very fantastic verb, but we put together, it's very well connected, the noun and the verb. As in the brain, I told that the dorsal visual pathway, the verb as represents some moving that should be, or the spade to spade, hammer to hammer, and if we see as about the same in the other language, so in the German, the shovel, shuffle, and schaufel, or the French, la pelle, pelleter. So it's a very thing. Or in Hungarian, lopat, that's the two, lopatolni. So that's a very same. And going because. So at the last flow chart that we put together, that the very primitive humans communicate with the grunts and emotional expression, and slowly with this prosodic rendering, mood, tonality, one monosyllabic and then multisyllabic words created that goes stored in the lexical memory, then verbs created, and then the cognitive grammar, through the cognitive grammar that these people have inheritably in their mind, they put together a sentence and communicate with each other, so-called with the language, and then the language is changes, and so many language develop through the people migration, and then how they live, the cultural difference, interact and change a little bit the meaning of the verb and the sentence, and then what we express that goes to the cognitive memory, and this whole circle just going on, and the people. So, thank you.
Okay. Now, what we learn, or the way we're going is, or we think we're going is, and this is Indian, that is, when the man became man, the so-called man, species, then cognition as a quantity came to the man. It's not that the animals don't cognize, but the ability to cognize everything. What is cognition? Cognition means I have an understanding. The way we kind of will interpret it is that man doesn't have many more tools. You can't run too fast, you can't swim, you can't fly, you can't do stuff. But you have this ability to discriminate, ability to understand, assess. And through that assessment, you can plan, project. So that's an ability. That's a tool you are given. So that is what we think. The cognition is not an attribute, it's a biological element given to the man, making him distinctive. Man is not an elephant, man is not a tiger, man is man, can outmaneuver the tiger by cognizing, by properly seeing far, down, out, so like that. So that process, the cognition process, has to be understood scientifically. So we use the last paper, we use the phrase called cognitive memory. That's something we have a cognitive memory which we use to understand. Not a function of understanding what you say, but understanding how you say, what your features are, what your setting is. So I can read those, not necessarily understand everything that you said. I can assess, reading people, reading minds, reading objects. So cognitive memory. We do not say where it comes from, but we think it is innate. And we think also it probably builds, as he said, as the time builds and so on. Okay. So then, cognition is internal. Internal. Internal means my cognition is mine. So the question is, I handle it, I understand it, but then I can express it. This is how I understand. Okay? So when I have cognition and then I have expression, so that is a process. We call it articulation. So from cognition, now I may or may not articulate, but that's a process. So what will say, or we are trying to say is, so this process, when it becomes sound, it becomes language. So cognition is there, cognition becomes sound. So the question is, what are the intermediate steps before the cognition becoming sound? So that's what we'll try to discover or try to assess or try to think. So then we go from backwards. So what we go into, so that sound has been analyzed, as we said before. Sound has been analyzed. Cognition can be philosophically analyzed. You know, how you really, yoga, think your mind, go inside of you, who thinks, how do you think, Kantian. So those kind of. But then we have this sound because I'm speaking now. I'm speaking now whatever I understand in speaking. But there is a difference between what I understood here and what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a function of my language, function of how I can communicate, function of you, setting, those conditions. So we will say that that's local. My expression is local. My expression is not what my cognition is. Cognition is absolute, cognition is my understanding. So we use the words before in the previous talk. So there is something called inner cognition. So in the Sanskrit, in the Vedic literature, they will call para. Para in the sense which is I have. But that has it can't be expressed. It is my understanding. You know, how much I love you, I can't say. No words for it. It's my heart. So the question is, there's no external manifestation of it. It's inside of you. How much of God is there? Where is God? I can't describe.
Beyond expression. Para literally is beyond.
Nirbak. That's okay. So that is where we bring this a grammarian called Paninian. So what he did was he tried to analyze what we say. what we say. What do you mean he analyzed? He did not himself analyze. He analyzed, he kind of tried to get lot material before and so on, has been going on, and then he kind of tried to structure it, and then he says, look, what you can express is, you are expressing in syllables. Expressing in syllable. So broadly I have given you the outline of this talk. So syllables. So those are the ways in which you are conveying. It might look like you are conveying a word, but as a matter of fact you are conveying a group of syllables. So the question is, what is this group of syllables in Paninian terms? So you are kind of manipulating the syllables, you are kind of adding, compounding, you are adding structures to it and so on, but the syllable. The way we take it in our table here, that each syllable is a quantum structure, is a unit structure. And that's also basic philosophically, in the sense each syllable is independent of the other syllable. So that independence means it has its own cell.
Discrete.
It's discrete. Its origin, its processing, and its expression.
Interesting.
However, as he's put the time scales could be, you do not know how the time scales would be, but that is the evolution process. So now he proceed. Oh, we're going into, okay, all right. So this is kind of a title into the, so what I'm saying is I'm giving you a preamble about what the paper is, so I'll go through this. So basically, so then we are saying is that the syllables exist and syllables have this discrete structure, and then Panini came up with this, or the way it has composed itself, that these syllables are some finite number. 64. So then the question is, why should it be 64? Cognition is not compounded by 64. Cognition, I cognize the entire universe. So then you can then probably think you might have the universe as analog, but then you must have some kind of a quantization. You must have some way to contain it, because you're limited brain, you're limited neurons, you're limited your time scale, which means you can't really say, well, I'm thinking. The tiger is right in front of you. So you have to kind of say, come to a decision very quickly, which means it must be a mechanical process where you have to take this information, fragment it, make it together, make a decision. Okay? So that ability one has. That's the idea. That's the idea. Which means, even though cognition is analog, which means I understand everything completely and fully, but my brain processing is quantized. That is, I have to segment it and say yes, and make this sense out of it. That goes into idea that those brain processing will eventually be communicable as syllables. So basically a syllable that is going out from us has a root in some cognitive segmentation inside the brain, where the material, so for example this scene, so this scene get decomposed into some segments, and those segments are then processed into syllables. So I will use a term called cognitive syllable, which are not really expressed. They are nascent, they're inside, they're neurological, they are brain centers, neurocenters, but they contain the information. And that information, that's the part of the cognitive memory. That information is there. So that information slowly releases itself, and then you express, may not express. So let us see. So rasa conveys cosmic existence. This I said before. So rasa's subject is bhava, but you have to understand this rasa and bhava that we are saying, as I said before, they are words which are kind of have many different implications. So you have to take those in context. Okay, so all expression biological, and then we are saying, then this process, this is a model. This process, what it says is that we create bhava because a rasa is impinging on me. A rasa, for example, my words are impinging on you. And so impinging means your state, your body state, you have a state. So that body state has a perturbation now. That body state is kind of a, oh, what is it? It gets it. So once it gets a perturbation, it tries to release itself because you want to come back to normalcy. That's the idea. So it's an instability that is caused by this impinge, and that instability would be somehow released. So the question is, we have to check scientifically how such process may work. That is the hypothesis. So that release is muscular, in the sense that because it comes neurally, but then religious is either you run, you shiver, you laugh, whatever way, you release it. Cry, you release it. Now, in Panini is still this thing. So, again, for this particular understanding of it, so that release, what we will say, from the Panini's point of view, it manifests itself as this word called dhatu. Dhatu in the sense, some cognitive verbal roots inside of us. That is our initial segmentation. Segmentation. That is, see, the point is that the stress came, or the rasa came as an impulse. Impulse affected me, and then I cognize it. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm not safe. Oh, okay. So whatever I understood it, so that understanding manifests itself as a dhatu, as an action. As an action. I will breathe now. I'll cough now. I'll run now. I'll do nothing. Whatever it is, that's an action. That's verbal. So the initial impulse, the impulse comes, and the impulse is kind of affecting you and becoming a dhatu. Now dhatu, then again is from the Panini's model. So I use the word dhatu, and Panini, what he discovers, that these dhatus have two kinds. That's Atmanepadi dhatu and that's a Parashmepadi dhatu. So which means that when cognition happened, this is again what we're doing is we're trying to interpret the Paninian grammar in the neurological context. So the way the reaction happened to me, then I'm saying that whether the attack is on me or whatever reaction is on me, or the reaction or the impulse is pushing me to do something else. Whether I'm an object or I'm the subject. I'm lobbying you or I'm trying to explain to you. When I'm lobbying you, parasmepadi. I'm using you as an object. I'm influencing you, you understand it. You are affected. You get it. So there's an internal getting it. So those kind of things are happening. So
it can be both also.
Wait, we'll discuss. So then what happens is, yes, it is both. So then what happens is that what we will say is that when that process happens, this again I'm taking Paninian models, there are other models. This is the how we can map it. Then what we are saying, what we will say is that this when this reaction took place, Russia came impinged you with a reaction that of Haber. So your Haber has twofold activity. One-fold activity is we'll call static, and one-fold activity is dynamic. Static in the sense there's a change in body state. A change in body state, in the sense which is a reaction by the Russia to you, which has moved your state from whatever state you had to some other. And so that change of state, we will call the release of that is a consonant. And then however, the intensity of that, the duration of that, the continuity of that, we'll call a vowel. Again, it can be technical, but the next one. So Russian language. So we are kind of semantic, or Rasa, the semantic origin of words. We are saying words convey the same meaning in respect languages, and it's a similar natural response, neural response. So primitive environments that Bela said, cognition of objects and environment point to innate human signature. So anatomical findings, we're kind of finding so this is the stages of speech expression we have. Then cognitive memory, which I explained to you. Then lexical memory. So lexical memory can happen. So lexical memory is that this is called a board, this is called a house, this is called this. So this is lexical memory. So this is in my brain, in my kind of I'm thinking. I'm not born with it. I'm learned it. Lexical, local. So we'll try to see how we can make a model out of it. From cognitive memory and lexical memory and the words. Next one.
Sorry.
We'll take a 5 minutes question. So formation of language, you just saw this model before, so I will not explain to you, but this is how. So this model, which is again I have given this in the handout, you can study it, and then we are saying that whether we can really make this. So there is no present theory of language. There is no theory of speech. So basically, from very elementary drawings and so on, we're trying to create a model. And then we are also bringing Sanskrit and Panini into it, but we'll show you our limitations. Next one. This also you saw, how the different processes happen in the brain, but it has its own connotations in the model. But I want, since you've already seen this, I won't go into accept this kind of things that, so beyond this, I use the word para, which is a function, an innate function, where you have comprehensive cognition. Comprehensive cognition has no biological equivalent. It's comprehensive. I know. I know means not that I can communicate. I know. So that's the para. So that is spiritual. So whether outside, inside, I can't say, but that is not expressed here. What is expressed is, I know how does it look like to me. So where I bring recollection, it looks like to me like a tree, like a rock, like a god, like this. But what I see is different than all of those. So that's para. Okay? So Paninian alphabet. So number 3 is acoustic letters. Acoustic letters have a sound. And then he makes into 2 different groups. Ach is the vowels and hal are the consonants. And then he also says like there are kind of a different kinds of consonants. The sparsha, antastha, and ushman. And then we have, so then we said before, as I kind of give my introduction, that each letter is an independent sound unit. So our goal is to see whether independent sound unit connects to an independent cognitive unit, and then whether cognition expresses itself in the acoustics. Okay? Let us say that production units map to Vedic recitation. Yeah, you don't bother with that. Move on. So these are the letters that Panini has. Nobody has shown one way or the other if the letters are a complete set. See, what happened is that the Vedas as like scriptures, old scriptures, they existed. And then it seems that what he discovered as an engineer, that this set of syllables can be taken and mapped and the Vedas can be read through it. Vedas are oral. So the question is, these sounds, you can say, okay, I can take these sounds and make my grammar and I can read the Vedas. That's the idea. That's the idea. But whether the question is whether this sounds or some combination of sounds. Why these sounds? So that has not been analyzed. And then what we have seen is that these sounds are given to us, given by whom? So that is where we are coming from. The most likely, these sounds are innate, cognitive, if are they. That's the goal, that's the way to study. Move on. So, Rasa is the synthetic signal that creates perception. This is what we kind of said, these are our assumptions. The thought is neurological, cognitive arrangement. Thought themselves carry no language. Thoughts may not see external expression due to lack of intentionality. This is a word again, neuro word we're bringing in, which is not totally necessary for this thing, but the question is, sometimes we don't express. So the question is, what we do is a function of, but this is a very powerful Vedic and philosophical word, which becomes like ichha in the Indian literature. Language, limited mechanism to express thoughts. So language is speech, innately triggered muscle reaction to a biological response. Speech is a tool that converts thought to acoustic signal. So this is our theory. That is, the speech is only a tool, is not your only thing. Cognition your thing. Cognition converts in a sense that you don't speak doesn't mean that you don't cognize. You don't hear doesn't mean that you don't cognize. You are a human being, cognition is with you. So that is where we said the baby, he made the baby example. So baby cognizes, understands. So not that he can express himself, no papa, this thing, but he understands where he is. That's the idea. What's in grammar? Grammar assists in rendering thoughts, cognitive metaphorical expression, orient communication, produce creative composition. Creative composition is another thing, which I will not go details into it, but that is a part to it, how you become creative. When you become creative, words are not with those creativity. Creativity is independent of your words. So the question is that process. So just like a painter, just like this thing. So you do not know, so the idea is independent of the brush you use. So similarly, the idea is independent of the language you use. Move on. So this is the model flow. So we are saying rasa is a stimulus. The stimulus, then we're using a new word, new French called cognitive token. Cognitive token is a sense the rasa that came to me somehow got scattered. And that scattering by vachaka. Vachaka means that what it is conveying to me. What it is, bacha is something speaking. So what it is telling me, not any other object, bachaka, what information it brings. So the my cognition, how does it react to that rasa impulse? I'm seeing that house. So what I'm getting? That is bachaka. So once that bachaka comes in, right, there's a cognitive arrangement. These are again our own phrases, and we have not validated them. They don't exist in the literature. So cognitive arrangement. So what we are saying here is that there is a basic rhythm to the cognition. Cognition as it comes, these Vachakas. So they have a way to organize themselves. We don't know how. But that's the origin, we say, of the Chanda. Chanda in the sense we are seeing in phrases. We are seeing in finite length words. So words don't exist, but cognitive words, cognitive phrases. So a cognitive phrase is Chanda. Cognitive phrase in the sense, a tree's oscillation. So that's a segmentation. It's analog, it's coming like that, but I segment it. And then I see, all right, I can make sense. So those quantized feelings of that cognition is the Chanda. Chanda. And Chanda can have many different ways. It may be monotonic, it may be multiphonic, it may be many different, not phonic, multitonic. So it may be in many different ways. But the question is, so bit length, short length, we don't know what the length is, but that the cognitive units are kind of composed together in the time scale. That's the idea. So then that produces a semantic map. So this thing that produces a map, this is the so-called Pashyanti in the Vedas, that when you try to see. So this is how that object is seen by me. So Pashyanti, then Pashyanti operates to neural imprints. So this is what Prem mentioned about. So immediately Pashyanti comes, and then the brain is coming up active. Oh, really? So because you are now physically, the cognition is trying to take a physical manifestation. So when it becomes the neural imprints, then you have a bhava. Bhava in the sense, you are, you have a recollection. You have seen this person. That's a tiger. So tiger did not really come as tiger to you. They came as cognitive tokens. So why was the cognitive tokens? That is a Harvard theory, or somebody, retinal theory. That is how we see. We don't see, I'm not seeing you objects at all as you. Yeah. I'm seeing you lines and curves. I'm constructing you. That's the bottom line of how the neural processes might be active. It's not the one whole thing, but pieces. Then there's reconstruction. So I'm probably seeing tiger's eyes and tiger's stripes and tiger's colors and so on. And then that Vachaka, that becomes a Chanda, and then, okay. So imprint has to come in. I would not know at what time imprint will come in. Chanda will, so which basically experimentally if you do, so you see music and so on, Chanda going on, you don't know what time you say, I got the idea. You're playing it, going on it, you get it. So that's the time, that's the bhava, where you get affected. So far you're cognitive. So that's the time scale. So bhava, then it comes to this particular sector called ichha, intentionality. So where we don't know again where it sits, but it's a physical structure in the brain which will say what I do with this bhava. You know what I mean? Do I suppress it, restrain it? Do I act on it? Do I run? What is mine? So then, in the sense that there's a psychological factor in it, where there's a threshold factor. The bhava is not so strong and so on, I can deal with it. So that's the intentionality. So intentionality then might decide that, okay, let me express. I saw a tiger. So that is approached enough. You say, I saw a tiger. I saw a tiger is a sentence. And it has many different varnas. Varnas in the sense, the how do I express this? So I will create each of them. I saw a, right? So all that has to be constructed. So those are the Varnas. Those are the Varnas. But Varnas doesn't have any grammar. Varnas, so I saw a tiger doesn't come from the Varnas. The only thing that comes from the Varna is this bhava, that has been this thing, suggests this Varna. So if you had me carefully before, so there lies Panini's dhatu. Dhatu in the sense, my reaction to this impulse, this stimulus in me will now become a varna. The, ba, pa, whatever. That's the beginning part of it. Beginning part of it. Then it has all associated other things, depending upon how the vachaka is working. If the vachaka is monotonic, you know what I mean? You are seeing the same sun, so varna would be monotonic. But if a vachaka is kind of moving object, he said, dynamic and so on, so you'll have different things here. We note the time scale of it. So this varna, so then it becomes a proto-unit of sentence, madhyama. You know, in the sense that, okay, it's not a single object, but tiger is coming towards me. Alright? So basically you have now motion, you have ferociousness, you have a big object. All those are kind of also in vachaka form has come. They have different rhythms. So all the rhythms, so they make a madhyama. Madhyama in the sense, oh, I must say something. I can't hold myself. Madhyama. Here is no, varna is not madhyama. Varna is simply that you understood it. Dhatu. So madhyama. Then comes, once the madhyama operates, so this is the Vedic word, so then we go to grammar. Grammar in the sense, can I express it? How do I express it? The noun, verbs, adjectives. Where are they? Where are they? Who creates them? It's a yellow tiger. You know what I mean? So why should yellow be before tiger? You know what I mean? So those kind of things comes like background, grammar. Grammar in the sense, so then the question would be, so some people like Chomsky and so on we interact with, this is the natural grammar. Natural grammar means, I know it's a yellow tiger. In our theory, what we'll say, it do not matter. Depends upon what the cognition is. You saw the tiger first or yellow first? What happened to you? This varna. What was the emotion in you through that motion? So that drives it. It happens to be yellow. It could be white. It could be red. You know what I mean? So that is the primary, secondary function of vachaka. Chanda also, the phraseology. So that comes in. So vakarana. So vakarana will create, then it becomes local alphabet because I'm expressing now. Shushvara, Vyanjana, consonants and vowels. Why consonant vowel? Because, I'm getting late. Consonants vowel because we have see how do I express it? So that's a function of how, my muscular functions, my biological. So that is where, even though I have a madhyama sentence, I have to choose that can I really express it. So and then this thing comes in. So this is a compounding in the sense, this cognitive tokens, they become now intermixed and so on. I say, okay, I bring that to here. I see the big eyes, that become a prominent phrase. I saw the tiger, but tigers have rolling eyes. So that becomes compounding. I must say such a thing, looks like a roaring tiger to me. Sanghata. You know what I mean? So he's not Varna anymore. Varna has a character now. And then, so becomes an acoustic sentence. All that. So where you come the intonation. So all that together, they become a bakery. Bakery in the sense what eventually comes out of my mouth. So speech. Next one. So meaning of language. I'm going to late. So Vakya. So Spota. So this kind of a this is again a little more technical, where that's what I'm saying now. Is it meaningful? You know, how we make a meaning out of it? The theory of meaning of that speech that I said. So I won't go into details about it. But, okay, move on. Oh, so then we took. So this paper we took some languages, Ka and Pa. But the idea is the following. The idea is that can the universe or the cognition that I have of the universe, can it be decomposed into the Paninian alphabet letters? Are they complete? Suppose tiger is replaced by a snake. What happens? The same Varna comes, different Varna comes. Suppose the snake replaced by my mother. What happens? They're all impulses. They're all stimulus to me. So the question is there a qualitative difference to it? And my Bachak is different. So the question is there a composite structure in which the Bachak will so operate that it will convey the emotion of the object, the Russia of the object, through my imprint, say that, yes, don't be fearful, or be afraid, or take it easy, or run away, things like that. So Sika, move on. You can probably read the handouts and so on. We might do some follow-up. So like we have every first Saturday, first month, first Saturday. So we meet. So we can bring them. So here I'm saying the letters of the Ka in different languages. The Sanskrit, Tamil, and Hungarian. And what I'm trying to show is that Ka as a language, as a word, as a dhatu, seems to suggest that something is done to me. And next one, and Pa is an language that where I am doing something. Okay, this is the idea. So you can see. So paper, if anyone will write the paper, you can write down the email, or you can write to me, I can send you the paper. Then move on. So articulation. So articulation, the question then is that suppose we now claim that dhatu, in terms of varna, has a value to cognition, then does cognition map itself in the body? That is, each letter is not only different by its sound, it's different also by origin. So which means cognition comes and then it says, oh, so you have to breathe like this. Involve your stomach, involve your hands, involve your legs. So like that. So where do you breathe from? How do you use your tongues? How do you use your teeth? So Pani has some examples of it. Example in the sense how those letters are produced. So we are trying to check if the letters are produced, what is the original plan for the letters. Move on. So this is a software experiment we try to do, where we try to take some Paninian letters, the so-called consonant letters, and try to check what kind of a pitch they have. So when I'm speaking, there's a lot of vibrations going place. You know what I mean? In the sense there's a lot of vibrations. But then there is a pitch, there's a letter, the envelope frequency that comes to the object, comes to you. So these are those kind of a overall envelope objects. So what we are showing here is that each of the letters It has a more depth to it, but I won't go into it. But the only thing I will show that this is a frequency scale here, pitch scale, here, and this is pitch, here. So you see, this is the paw. So the paw has the highest pitch in this drawing. That's the very gross view of this plot, but there's a much more depth to it, which I not go into the neurological and electrophysical aspects of it. So pa and ka is here. So you can see the distinction between them. And then the question is that whether this particular variation, that whether we can study the individual letter quality as the letter is used versus the individual letter frequency as the letter is produced. Can we correlate them? That this means, this sound means this, which is experimentally can be done the following way, that is whether we, by hearing a sound, do we have an understanding of what the message may be. In the night sometimes I stay alone and so on, and then suppose there's a noise. The noise, an animal coming, a twig fell down, intruder in. Many times I will nobody comes here, but you'll come down to check if there's an intruder here. You know what I'm saying? Which is psychological. But my point is, the sound triggered it. Imprint. Sound is impulse. That thing impulsed you. That, hey, look, don't ignore it. Imprint. Because sometimes those sounds have been dangerous to you. So then you come and take and check, which is total nonsense. You know what I mean? So this happens. That's what I'm trying to say, that the sound has a quality and it can really, and also at sometimes sound can also educate you. But anyway, move on. So then I'm kind of showing the rest for, so those details I will not go into now. So principal patterns I said. Then, a neurological model. So what we are saying is that the universal cognitive translation of stimulus to multimodal proto-speech units, which is technical, intention in the brain help to convey these units muscular response to speech expression. Cognitive faculty is universal, but speech is local. That's what I said before. It's a cognitive faculty. And that irrespective of your origin, place, and so on, you're basic man. So that distinguishes you from anything object. Decision to express is a prefrontal and so on. So then I also, come on, move on. So I saw here what Bela said from the drawings that you have seen before, that the so-called the statements I have made, how the brain is processing it. So this is a model where the so-called Vedic operation of cognition and our operation of speaking and Paninian alphabets and grammar, how they may be functioning in a neurological way. So this is the consonant model, and we'll have the difference between consonants and vowels are, the vowels are, in the Paninian model, vowels are being operated through throat only. The body parts are not involved. And hence what we say is, when I say the bhava is a whole body operation. Your finger, toes, everything goes into bhava. The dance, you have seen dance. So dance, in the sense that you are not saying that you are seeing this way. But you are love, you are love. You know what I mean? So that's the Natya Shastra, where you have a full occupation onto that mood. So that's a consonant. My gaze, I'm gazed there. So that is a dhatu, that's some kind of a object which kind of leads me to that gaze. But then that gaze, when I render, stay, prolong, then I go into the vowels, what I do with there. So that's the idea. But we have not done the vowels yet. We will come to the vowels in the next paper. And I think that is at the end?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe I'm just coming in late in the conversation also, but that cognitive memory is the unexpressed perception.
It shouldn't be called memory, because memory is a brain function.
So this is what I'm saying, just the what you
Memory is a word we can't know. We have to use the words that we exist. So we have to gradually see whether we can introduce the new words which are not anatomical words. You know what I mean? So vachaka I use, people complain what is, so vachaka has been used as a linguistic term.
Right, yeah.
Vachaka as an expressive term. You know what I mean? Our whole thinking is that cognition happens. And when it happens, so it happens through cognitive memory is some kind of a
So is it a cognitive experience takes place, let's say?
The same thing will happen. Experience, another English word.
Yeah.
So the question is, we got to understand till we make some kind of a glossary that this is what is meant and so on. But we have to develop it and make it.
Before it is essentially what you mean is what one in a non-verbal, actually it has not been stated
Right,
in words.
right.
But
So in the sense that the
some
flower,
things
before the flower, that's where creativity comes in. Before the flower, you see the flower, the concept of flower can come in you, and that has nothing to do with flower per se.
God, so that it has not been labeled yet.
It is not been labeled yet.
Yeah.
It's not been labeled
So
yet.
it is basically the
Right,
undifferentiated,
right.
undiscretized,
Right. So
that
the
experience.
cognitive memory, the question is whether it's a physical space, not a physical space, we do not know. From the Bela's point of view, since it's all brain, some physicalities would be there. But where and how and so
It
on.
can be an abstract
And
experience.
the memory as a phrase and word probably is not right, because you need not have seen this before. The whole idea is, doesn't matter where you are deep in the ocean, you cognize. You've never been there before. So that ability of survival, ability to really protect yourself, ability to discriminate where I am. And that's what I'm bringing the child.
Child doesn't have a
Child
language,
comes out,
but, yeah.
you know what I mean? And so that the Indian scriptures write a huge things about
Sure.
it. And we can call it, they say buddhi and so on, but the whole part is, it's a function that given to me, with me, which I operate. Endowment. That's the idea.
Can I, just apart from that, the other question that I have is that you have used certain terms.
No,
like-
take lunch though before you go. Hey, Chochin,
Yeah,
don't go away.
yeah, I need to go.
I have enough lunch. No.
I have a family party. I have to go.
Family party?
I'm already 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Also
Nice,
take your
thank
sandwich
you.
with you. On
Yeah.
the kitchen table there's sandwich.
Oh,
Take with you.
probably. Okay, thank you very
Also
much.
tell Chochin.
Nice meeting with
Okay.
you
Acha.
again, mostly.
Misra ji, you've used some technical words like rasa, dhvani, bhav, and all those things. And I know that you guys have done a lot of creative thinking and a lot of rigorous work on that. Of course, I would like to learn more actually how you're using it.
Yeah.
But you know what the issue that I'm raising is, because those things are very established technical terms also.
Right,
Because
something-
rasa, dhvani,
Right.
and
That's not
bhav.
quite true.
So what happens is that there is I know that of course any word can have multiple meanings.
Not that way. So the neurology, the question is we
Yeah.
are bringing those into scientific literature.
Yeah.
So we're using them, and again, I interact with some people, they have their own understanding of linguistic version of Russia, and those are very convincing, because they read somewhere, they have not analyzed it. So we are into the more, as I said before, Spinoza, I don't know whether you will hear it, Spinoza thing, the Rasa is an essence, is Ananda. So that's the Rasa. That's the Rasa-ness of it. I have it. I have my Rasa. For example, did I communicate my Rasa to you? No. I communicated some variation of it. So my Rasa is still inside of me. My understanding of it is in me, innate. So the question is, that Rasa which I have, I pasyanti. I see it, make a map of it. Then Madhyama. Then I say, okay, here are the people. This is what they will understand. So let them make a sentence out of it. Then make a baikuri. I'm using English. I do local. So the question is, however, so it has transformed now. So if you are an information theorist, you can check how much information loss is taking place as we gradually going through. So there's however, whether, means this is where if you want philosophical, can I really say it fully as my Rasa is? The answer is yes. If my body machine becomes so efficient, efficiency of my delivery, my lungs, my throat, my this thing, my breath, it means has zero deficiency. That state is possible, that's one thing. Which means I kind of say it and he rises up.
Yeah, philosophically then knowing and being becomes one.
Right. So it means, so that's the absolute truth. And that's the idea, that absolute truth is not that doesn't exist, but it needs some perfection which you don't have. But which means asymptotically you can reach there. But now, however, any pasyanti, you said Rasa, you know what I mean? That's pasyanti Rasa. That's what you saw it. Rasa is still eluding you. You know what I mean? So that's what has happened. But people are not that analytic to really understand that part of it. But that's okay. Okay.
And the other thing is, like, it's not quite true that these technical terms are fixed. Just the term rasa has been used at least 24 ways
Yeah, well, yeah.
in text.
Yeah, well, see, that's I think in Prem's
Prem sort of pointed that
paper,
out.
he sees mentioned
Yeah,
Rasa different ways. In our paper also you can read.
Yeah.
So that Rasa in, Rasa in nutrition, Rasa in bhava, Rasa in, dance, Rasa in Vedas, Rasa in apa, Rasa in Rasa, like that. So, however, I think I'm not researched it yet, but whatever I read Prakrit literature now, that Rasa as a it doesn't have no origin, no dhatu. Know what I'm saying? It is not something came and I created it. I did not create it. It is given. So something happened to me. Again, we don't know, 10,000 BC or whatever time, then say that there is a Rasa. What is Rasa? For example, now you can say that, look, I went to that meeting and so on, yeah, Rasa.
Maja.
I got the Rasa. There's not quantification. You can't say this happened, that happened, this happened. So somehow there is a connection. Some yoga happened. So that's Rasa. So the question is that where, so when we say the Rasa is an an objective property, that's not true. Rasa is a handshake property. You connect to it. It is there. It is there. But it may not touch you. But when it touches you, you know what I mean? You love. Doesn't touch you. But when it touches you momentarily, that Rasa. And that Rasa is Ananda. Is kind of pure joy. You know what I mean? But other Rasa now tastes good, very good, very good. Okay, I want some more. That other Rasa has no more. It is. You know what I mean? So the the question is we have to kind of examine neurologically what that is, what does the model. All right.